A theater itself is a very neutral space, and what we put in it and how it contrasts to the room around you is exactly what we're trying to create, is a world in a room.
By doing this, we're creating the atmosphere that the audience is going to see.
How does this world feel? How does this world smell? We take that into consideration, even though the audience is never going to, they don't know. We know as designers.
I think there are several ways you can approach design, but we sort of had to have an official process here, and I kind of combine that with my professional experience and how I do it.
I read the scripts a few times, and I sort of try to get the world of the play that the playwright is sort of trying to create within the words, and get a lot of the visual imagery and what we actually need to accomplish this show.
We want them to kind of dissect the script and really get into the poetics, if you will, of the script.
We have to imagine the world in which the design takes place and then condense that world literally into a room.
If it says it's 1912, find out if that's where the play's actually going to be set or if you're moving it. The thing to look at is within a script. If somebody says, oh, those are beautiful red shoes you have on, then you want to make a note that it's beautiful red shoes.
How many doors do we need? How many entrances? How many exits? Where are we? Are these people rich? Are these people poor?
It's all very specific for the role, so depending on what the costume is and how quick it needs to be, there's never like one easy answer.
When we know that it's going to have to be a quick change, and we can tell by reading the script, that's part of the design process, we can construct them to make it easier to get in and out.
And then other times, if it's not a super quick change, they'll have just people backstage helping them. There'll be like 4 people helping take off a costume, put on a costume.
I've had people, as many as 5 people, dress a person, and one person's job is to place the shoes, take the old ones off, put the new ones on, and another is to drop one skirt and have another one around her shoes, so she just steps in and the dress comes up and zips. So a lot of it's in the planning and organizing of the crew, and a lot of it is, rip away costumes, snap away costumes.
One technique is if a lady is wearing a corset. Corsets, if you know anything, are just like shoes that lace up the back. You can actually put a steel bone down the center, and instead of lacing from grommet to grommet like you would a pair of shoes, you loop it over the bone, so that way when it comes time for the quick change, you take the bone out, the corset falls off.
You have to kind of keep all these things in tune before you even start designing.
But then from there you start cultivating images. I keep bins of images that I just search through: books, fashion books, history books, books on painters, modern things as well, and just anything interesting, I save it.
I collect a lot of images, show them to the director and the rest of the design team, and see what we as a whole are responding to.
From that, you kind of flesh out who the characters are with your director.
I constantly talk to the costume and the lighting designer, even the sound designer, to figure out what they're doing and how I could better complement or contrast what they're doing. After that, I start doing my sketches, my drawings, my drafting, my color work.
Then all those drawings, research, swatches go into the shop, and we plan out what we call a work Bible or a show Bible that has every detail, every item and earring, and how a fabric's treated, all laid out. So we kind of use it as our guide to build the show.
You come up with your best game plan, but you must always be ready to roll with the punches. Someone gets sick, someone gets into an accident, changes wind up happening in rehearsal, so you do the best you can.
In the early stages of design, you're designing in a complete model space, and it's in small scale. You don't have the actual costumes on there yet. You don't have the actual lights on there yet. You have all these great ideas or ideas that you think are great, and you have to sort of make that conscious decision to weed out certain ideas.
I've known designers in the past to come up with a great design for a show and then find out that their actor is a foot or two taller than what they were anticipating.
So when everything comes together, it might become more apparent that a redesign of something is needed.
Some of it is practicality, hey, we just can't build this the way we thought we could or the way we wanted to. Sometimes it has to do with actor safety. We can build this, but the actors are going to hurt themselves. We got to redesign this.
Usually you build a costume so it's adjustable. So what you want to do is leave enough room so that you can negotiate a fitting, so you can let it out or take it in.
You have 5/8 in each seam. So if you let out each seam, you could gain up to 2 inches depending on the garment.
And there are certain things that you certainly can't make fit a whole different body type. But if an individual actor gains or loses weight, you should be okay.
This last week is kind of like okay, we have X amount of days, X amount of hours left to go to get this ready for first dress rehearsal.
It's just a lot of crunch time, and you have to get a lot of the detail work in, because now that we have the walls up and all the flats ready and mostly prepared, you have to go back through and critique everything and make sure it's the way the designer wants it to be presented on opening night.
When we get to the technical process, which is really putting together all of the technical elements, the tech rehearsals are putting all the technical elements together along with the actors on stage, and it's a tedious process, but it happens over the course of three or 4 days.
We sit down and go cue to cue and fine-tune each of the lighting cues, the placement of anything that's going on in it, and we really just work out the entire show in that day.
The first dress rehearsals, we generally go and meet with the wardrobe person, and the assistants do this in particular rather than the designers, to tell them this character needs to look like this vest is worn like this jacket's worn like this.
And of course things change up until opening night. That's the whole purpose of dress rehearsal, to look and say that hem's too long, we need to make it shorter, I don't like that trim, let's replace it with a different color.
Like, oh, he doesn't need to wear that jacket yet. Oh, her hair needs to look like this. Like,
Right.
making sure everything's the way it should be for the director to see when it's finally on stage.
Yeah, because that's our last chance to finalize everything before they go on stage.
We've had instances where, if we put a completely different color than what we're looking for on the costumes and just totally mess that up, then people get really upset and can make the show really ugly. So.
Under the lighting, a costume will look different than you anticipate. So sometimes things have to come back to us and be dyed down, for the actual first performance.
In every design, it's what do you want? More money and more time. So, and you just want more time to just kind of tweak this one thing, but there comes a point where you have to just let the set go, and sort of it doesn't ever get released. It kind of just escapes from your hands.
It's a very stressful process, but it makes it so worth it to see it opening night when the actor's on stage and everything it's a different world. It just makes it so magical and beautiful, and you're a part of that.
It's kind of like, you're racing, and then we hit this wall, and there's not a whole lot we can do anymore. I think that, a lot of designers will sit back and hopefully enjoy their work, their product, but I know that you're constantly thinking of ways that you can change things.
Even just being like an assistant,
You're
watching
like,
oh, I made that hat. It looks
Yeah.
so great. Oh, I made that. It looks so great. Everyone.
You get to see where all of your time went, and what you've created and how it looks on stage, and that's very, very
feels
awesome. Yeah.
great.
Then you kind of have that aha moment, like, yes, we're done.
I feel like oftentimes the designers and the construction people, the people working backstage, they don't get the recognition a lot. Because we see the actors and then we know the director. Set designer, not as important, but he is to the overall, he adds to that show. And that goes right down, everyone down to the carpenter, down to the guy sweeping the floors. Without those people, you wouldn't have a good show.